was attracted to this article by the Huffington Post, and it was talking about the discussing of parenting and people that could afford kids and things that go along those lines. And I want to read you a little bit of a clip that it said from there. And it says, this lady says that I will not have a child in someone else's basement. And this is what she told the Huffington Post. For $1,200 a month, Ross and her husband currently rent a 1-bedroom basement apartment on New York's Long Island. Now, I just remember that it used to be to a point where owning a home was the pinnacle of your existence for some people. And this was, I guess, even within my lifetime that I can remember. If you were in an impoverished neighborhood, or if you were in government subsidized housing, owning a home, getting out of that area and having a place in the suburbs mean you came up, mean you moved up, mean that things were working out for you. And it took me to this point right here in her last portion of it, where she says, I think my husband and I would make really good parents, Ross said. We just can't meet those other needs that are necessary to have a child. And so it's amazing that now in our society, it's kind of flipped on itself, where before owning a home and being financially stable will make it work. I mean, granted, look what our country's come through within the 20th century. We had the Depression. We had a whole bunch of recessions. We had a lot of stuff that came along with that. But now, in this generation, we're seeing a little bit differently. We're seeing people, I guess, after the 2008 housing crisis, they're making different decisions when it comes to money. It's fascinating. Very, very fascinating when I'm looking at it like that. And so one of the big questions is that, why is it like that? What happened necessarily for us to move from that part where we craved home ownership to now where it's like it's okay to rent, or it's okay to do other things, or it's okay to share a room, or Airbnb or anything like that? Looking at it, I guess the '08 crisis had a lot to do with it. And you say, well, why? Well, how would you say that? Well, let's look at a couple things. For instance, I loosely remember that 2002 to 2008. I mean, there's been all kinds of research that's been done on this, but the dot-coms and balloon that burst, and the subprime loans and everything like that had went into that. I'm just going to break it down for those people who identify with James Bush. I saw a lot of people, especially in the churches, where you would have these great prophecies and things along those lines that said, you're going to get a new house. It's like Oprah. You're going to get a car. 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 And we had all of this hoopla and everything that went along with that, but no one had the wisdom enough to go, well, how are we going to pay with it? How are we going to pay for this? How are we going to afford this new home that's going to balloon to triple the payment after we've been in it for about a year or 2 years or so like that? What is that going to look like? How's that all going to work out? We didn't really have that information or the understanding to go along with that. And so because of that, it kind of set us up for a perilous event called foreclosure, which happened a lot for a lot of people. A lot of people went through that space at that point in time. They, for lack of a better expression, they just were flipped upside down financially. And it's now gotten to the point, when I look at that '08 portion, it's gotten to the point where now there are millennials out there, they're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't need to do all this. I can live here and I can do X, Y, and Z, and I could be better off. I'm okay with renting. You know, when I was coming up, renting was somewhat of a bad word. I mean, yeah, it was something of a if you weren't owning, then it's like you were less than or behind, as opposed to ahead of the curve. But now, I've even heard Dave Ramsey, one of the financial gurus, where he's like, losing a home is not the worst thing in the world. Renting, and so now our minds have changed when it's come to this idea of money, being financially responsible. And now that also moves into the place of child rearing, parenting, because parenting is not just about owning a home, but it's about raising children within a setting that will set them up for success further on in their own life. So we know that it's more than just having a big edifice and having no furniture in there. We know that it's more than just being able to have all these nice pleasantries, but also to the point of not being able to do activities like going places, doing things. We understand that now. We understand that there's more to it than just, I guess, being flashy. I guess that's one of the reasons why some people, the whole bling era, I guess, within the hip hop, it was cool. But then after the housing crisis and everything went like that, it kind of like tailored off, because when you're talking about as much bread and dough as you got, and then you got somebody that's listening to you who doesn't really have anything, that really doesn't make too much sense. It's like, well, wait a minute, you just throwing chips and you just making it, rain, and your pockets is deep and everything, and that's good and all, but I'm broke. I don't have a whole lot. Me and you ain't relating right now. So because of that, we're disconnected. I don't know if I really want to even fool with you anymore, because you talking over my head. You talking about something that I'm going through real, and you up there just selling an idea. Anyway, but because of that, parenting, placing your children in activities, being able to afford and doing things that are beneficial for us all as far as growth. It's more than just being able to sit around the television and watch random episodes and things along those lines, but being able to have extra income, to leave to your children. And so I think that our generation has changed their minds on the ideas of money. We don't mind renting our house out for an Airbnb. We don't mind, even I was in Atlanta not too long ago, and they're all just clamoring, look, we're trying to rent our place out for the Super Bowl. This is where we're going to come up at. and really, it's smart, because we are in that DIY generation where that generally can happen now. That's a reality we have right now. So if someone was to ask me, where is this really going? Well, I'm always a fond believer that history generally, it's going to repeat itself at some place or some time. Are we all going to get back on the home ownership boat or anything like that? Is it going to be to the nature of what it was before? I don't know. I'm not a fiduciary financial forecaster or anything like that. Again, it is cyclical. And these things, just as the market, if I talk to some realtors or so, they're saying, it's leveling off. Before it was one, I don't know if it's buyers or sellers market, anything like that. Don't get me lying on here. But it's beginning to level off, because I guess sellers are realizing they can't get the prices that they wanted for the homes or anything. So yeah, we know those things are happening. It's cyclical. After a while, people are going to want to own homes and find ways to do. But I think the mentality and everything that comes along with that, just as we had a depression within the 20s and the 30s, I believe the 30s or so like that, and then we had the big housing booms and things like that. All this stuff is going to fold back and on itself. But the pivotal question is, what will that do for us as a society? I think that's the biggest thing that we have to look at, as far as what it does for us as raising children, as parents getting married, because now, because of this, some parents are feeling that they are not financially fit to have a child within their home setting. It's like this lady was saying, she was like, look, I'm not raising a kid in a basement. That's not happening. And so now parents are waiting longer and longer to have children, or even getting married, which is funny too, because there was this narrative out there at one point in time where they believed that women and men were waiting longer to find Mr. Right or Mrs. Right or anything like that, I guess because they wanted to find the right one. But I guess now you could also add into that, I guess if you're broke and you know you can't afford it, then you possibly wait a little bit longer. So, I get it. And that's very noble or anything like that. But what I just want to just put out there is that one thing I noticed. Remember when, for those who can remember, I think it was '06 when Katrina hit. And it didn't matter if you were rich, poor, African American, Caucasian, Hispanic, Native American. Excuse me. A lot of the gas was gone. There were lines for days. And yeah, I'm gauging a little bit of hyperbole, but there were lines of people waiting to pull into gas stations and only to find that there was no gas available. And so one thing that happened in an area down in the South affected many of us. And that's what I'm looking at for these situations here, is that as we begin to see these shifts and these trends with husbands and wives and men and women as they're waiting, and what are the trends that are going to happen in our relationship dynamics and how we parent and the ways we parent and what we're able to do. Are you able to play with your children because you've waited, I guess, maybe 20 some odd years? I mean, what that look like? I really do not believe it will look like the same way that it was when, I guess, our parents had us. Different time, different mentality, different mindset. But it's going to be very interesting to see how those things begin to unfold within the next 10 to 20 years. All right. For more on this topic and topics like this, visit us at bushcounselingservices.com. That is bushcounselingservices.com. Take care.